Brian Breslin. I'm the Business Development Director with Voxpro. And on behalf of everyone at Voxpro, I just want to welcome you all here tonight. You'll be happy to hear that I am the least interesting person that you'll have to listen to, so it all goes uphill from here. Just some housekeeping before we get started. We are live streaming this event, so if anybody wants to share it or have their colleagues or friends or anyone view the live stream, you can get it from our Twitter or on our Facebook page. And that live stream, I believe, is live from now. Also, we would ask you to, tweet about tonight, take photos, tweet your comments, anything like that. And the hashtag is VoxProTalks. So we're going to have a very interesting evening tonight. We're focusing on Fintech, of course, tonight. It's a great way to start this week. Of course, MoneyConf, bringing Web Summit back to Dublin. We're proud to be a sponsor as well for this week. And look, I just hope you all find tonight fascinating and it's a good time. In Voxpro, we're as much about fun as we are about delivering performance. So don't be shy in grabbing beers and champagnes, and do feel free to stick around afterwards and enjoy yourself. So to kick off tonight, we're going to start with Alessio from Luno. He's going to give a brief introduction on cryptocurrencies, blockchain, and I guess sort of dive into the future of finance and the future of money and what people are talking about at the moment. So, Alessio, where are you? All right, so the guys are on the way down. How awkward is this? Should I tell a joke or something? Right? Yeah, someone give me a guitar, I'll definitely sing a song, no problem. Is most people here going to the conference? Do we have a lot of attendees for the conference? Get a show of hands who's actually going to MoneyConf this week? Good, so at least some of you will know what tonight is about, which would be great. That'll make it a lot easier. So Alessio, good timing. You're up first, my friend.
Perfect.
So with that, I'm going to pass it over to Alessio from Luno, and he's going to get tonight started for us, all right?
Perfect. Thanks a lot. My name is Alessio. I am the General Manager Europe for Luno. We are a cryptocurrency wallet. We're active in 40 countries globally, and we actually have on-the-ground operations in Europe, Asia, and Africa. So truly a global company. So today I just want to talk very briefly about the future of money. And the reason why is that money and the way we think about money is changing rapidly. If you think about the revolution that other forms of telecommunication have gone through, like think about how it changed from post to email, or it changed from landlines to mobile phones. There was a rapid evolution there, and money is just the same is supposed to happen to money. And the beauty is that we now have decentralized currencies and decentralized cryptocurrencies that allow the same type of revolution to happen. And I think some of the reasons Jeremy and David will go into more detail. How will we get there? I think overall it is going to take a couple of years before we actually get there. It's not just going to happen from one day to the next, right? And we think it will happen over the course of 3 phases. We're now in phase 1. That is in itself is going to take 2 to 3 years. The pain point that we see today is the access to cryptocurrencies. It is still quite difficult to get there. And that's very much what we've taken on ourselves, is to make it extremely easy to get access to cryptocurrencies. So allow people to bridge from the old world to the new. And then you have other 2 phases. The second one being around growing the ecosystem. I think some of the players in the cryptocurrency world today, they're jumping some of the phases. I think arguably, if you think about it, some of the stuff David will be talking about, they might already be in the second phase. And then in the third phase is really looking at other stuff around AI, etc. And I think if you look at the trend that has happened so far, it's very clear that phase 1 is already happening, and it's happening well, and across a lot of different metrics, we're seeing adoption, and stuff is going in the right direction. And as the market grows, the faster this transition will happen. Let's look at the use case that people have for cryptocurrencies. And on the one hand, you have the people that need it, and on the other hand, you have people that are greedy in the way they think about it. If you think about the people who need it, and these are for the most part people who've been marginalized by society, or they might come from emerging economies. If you think about it, for instance, Venezuela is a country where the adoption of cryptocurrencies has been more rapid than in other markets. Also South Africa. So I arrived from South Africa this morning, and if you looked at it, the South African rand tanked 5% in 2 days against the dollar. It's a currency that's heavily caged away from the rest of the world, and it's a market where we see tremendous demand for cryptocurrencies. So it's very much the marginalized societies that are driving the adoption before the other guys come into play. On the other side of the spectrum, you have people who are driven by greed. And these are obviously people who are looking for financial return, for an economic benefit. And somewhere in the middle, you find people, that are looking at it from a portfolio diversification perspective, kind of seeking alpha, looking at for an asset that is not correlated with any other asset, and Bitcoin has proven to be exactly that. But focusing more on the greedy side and why greed is good, as was famously said by Gordon Gekko in the movie World of Wall Street. For the first part, it provides liquidity for other use cases. So there's actually a very important component. And secondly, it accelerates the network effects. And what I mean by that is, so if you think about companies like Facebook or LinkedIn, right? The value comes very much from the fact that many other people are using it. If only 100 people were in Facebook, it would be almost useless. You wouldn't be able to communicate with anyone else. And the same obviously applies to cryptocurrencies. The more people have it, the more valuable it is to other people, because it allows you actually to transact with anyone else who also has it. So the more people on it, the higher the value. On the flip side of it is the earlier you enter the game, the higher is the upside that you can get from joining the party, so to speak, right? The longer you wait, the smaller is your upside, effectively, right? And these forces, they kind of work all together. And I think obviously I think very much now, on the one hand, it's driven the adoption of Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies very much driven by on the one hand the needy people, but also on the other hand the greedy people. I think something that was particularly well seen in times of November and December, obviously. And that obviously has a very positive feedback loop, right? Because the price goes up, people make money, then they go around, tell the people how well it went, and that stuff just perpetuates. So quickly recapping, there is a very strong demand for cryptocurrencies. What people use it today and how people use it in the future is rapidly changing, and the mix will also change. And the adoption is very much, the more people adopt it, the more benefit we'll take from it. And lastly, I think what people don't realize is that we're actually way closer to the tipping point than we think we are. And the way we like to look at it is, people have the expectation that once a new currency takes over, it will be announced in the news, and you open the Financial Times and it will say, today we have a new currency. But the reality is it will be extremely chaotic. It will take years. It will be extremely, even if you look at the way that when the euro was introduced, right? That was chaos when I remember back then. There was 6 months before it was introduced, there were so many questions. Every day the newspapers were writing about it. How does it work? What's going to happen to my old money? Can I still use it? It was very, very chaotic. So I think it's going to be a couple of years ahead, and it's going to be chaotic. And I want to leave you with this cover from The Economist from 1988. So it was roughly 30 years ago, in which The Economist was basically saying, "Get ready for a world currency." And and it's hard to see, but on that little coin, it says 2018. So it's kind of interesting. I think it goes back to what I was saying in terms of you're going to open the newspaper and you're going to read about it, but I mean it's kind of interesting how I wouldn't put too much value on it, but I think it's kind of interesting still to see. All right, that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Alessio. It was a great introduction, I think, and it's prepared, hopefully, people for a little bit for what's to come later on this evening. But just before we get into that, I've actually been waiting to introduce this man for a year for some occasion, so it's great that I finally get to do it. But I want to welcome to the stage the only man, I think, who can get away with saying sexy and outsourcing in the same sentence. Our co-founder and CEO, Dan Kiley.
Cheers, Brian. That's a very hard kind of act to live up to, I have to say. Firstly, can I say thanks so much for coming along this evening? And it's a Monday after a weekend, and thanks. My co-founder and wife just asked me, am I talking about the sexy bit? And I'm not yet. So thanks a million, guys, for coming along. A little bit about Voxpro. Voxpro is an award-winning, multilingual, customer experience, technical support and inside sales organization. We work with iconic brands that are truly changing the world and helping them scale. And we're scaling with them. Over the last 3 years, we've grown our numbers from over 600 people to 6,500 by the end of 2018. So it's been quite the journey. Fintech has always been a major part of Voxpro's strategy. We've been there from the very beginning with Stripe and Robinhood and helping them scale and grow their businesses. Fintech, by its very nature, is very much aligned with Voxpro's core values. And I passionately believe that being true to your core values is the only way to scale a business globally. The majority of fintech companies are set up to disrupt jaded and tired industries. They get that the customer experience is the differentiator that helps them scale. They understand retention and they understand referral. Voxpro is evolving every day. We are staying ahead of the times. This year, we helped Robinhood launch its first cryptocurrency. We are very much at the forefront of this space. Now, enough about me. So I want to introduce you to our amazing panel. So, it's a great pleasure to welcome our moderator, Robert Hackett from Fortune magazine. And our very special guests, Jeremy Allaire, co-founder and CEO of Circle, and David Schwartz, chief cryptographer at Ripple. Two absolute rock stars in the crypto world and both leading the way for the next wave of cryptocurrency adoptions. Robert Hackett is a senior reporter at Fortune magazine. When he covers technology and business, Robert is one of the leading journalists in his field, covering digital disruption, blockchain technology, cryptocurrency, and artificial intelligence. Jeremy Allaire is the co-founder, chairman, and CEO of Circle, a crypto finance company that's focused on transforming the world with secure, simple, and less costly technology for storing and using money. Circle is backed by a $246 million from investors and recently completed a $400 million acquisition of Poloniex. Jeremy also founded Brightcove in 2004 an online video platform, and grew the company rapidly, leading them to a magnificent IPO in 2012. David Schwartz is chief, now here we go again, cryptographer at Ripple, and one of the original architects of the Ripple Consensus Network. Also known as Joel Katz. He is one of the most respected voices in the digital currency community. Take it away, guys.
Thank you. Oh, do I need this? Yeah, thank you. Thanks for joining, everybody. I'm Robert Hackett, and thank you both for being here. I'm excited about this chat. It sounds like there's a little bit of static, but that's okay. So first, I want to kick things off and ask you, Jeremy, what's wrong with this?
What is wrong with this?
What is wrong with that? It is a 50-euro note.
50 euro. Someone wrote with pen on it.
Okay, well, then maybe that's the first problem with it. But what are the other problems with it?
Well, I guess you can't transmit it to Mars in milliseconds, which is a problem.
Is that something we need in money?
Well, I think we'd like to have money work the way the rest of the internet works. We'd like to be able to share money and value, whether it's a few dollars to pay back a friend, or making an investment in a business somewhere, maybe a new business being started on Mars. But no, we want money to work the way the internet works. We want it to be instant. We want it to be global. We want it to be free to move that value around. We don't pay anything to send an email or share data or a photo or share our opinion. You want the benefits of what digital society is for the whole planet today. We all use that, billions of us every day. Money should work the same way, and this is not that.
I mean, if you don't want it, I'll take it.
I'm actually going to need this to buy a few Guinnesses later, so I'll hang on to it. David, same question to you. What's wrong with that?
I think the key problem is that it's neither universal nor interoperable, and you need one or the other. So if it was universal, if everybody in the world could accept that with equal ease, then that would be fine. And if it could interoperate with other systems that other people use, that would be fine too. You heard before about network effects and Facebook, like if only a few people use it or if a lot of people use it. You either need to have one internet that everybody uses, or you need to have Facebook interoperable with other systems. Because if you're stuck in an island, as the economy becomes increasingly global, more and more people want to do business internationally or are doing business internationally through intermediaries and slow systems, we start to really hit the problems that system has created.
Mm-hmm. How many people are cryptocurrency holders in the audience? Okay, fair amount, maybe half, something like that. How many people need to send cryptocurrency to Mars? A few people.
Good.
Okay. We've got some people. David, I want to talk about your title, which came up earlier. Chief Cryptographer. It's an unusual role for a company. What does that job entail?
Yeah, it's funny. I constantly get people mispronouncing it. I've heard like choreographer, cartographer, and all kinds of other things. So nobody knows what I do. It's kind of a created role. Specifically, they took what I did and they gave it a cool sounding name, which I think is a wonderful thing. I do a lot of external messaging for the company. I talk to people about what we're doing and kind of spread the gospel. I talk to our customers about improving global payments and removing friction from international payments. And I'm also trying to keep us aligned technically and make sure that we keep executing for our customers.
Mm-hmm. Do you have a chief cryptographer role, Jeremy? Is that something that you're going to hire for?
We have cryptographers on our team, but we don't have a chief cryptographer.
Mm-hmm. I asked because, at a recent Fortune event, we had Andrew Ng talk, and he is sort of like the AI guru master, formerly at Baidu and founded Coursera. But anyway, he has this theory that all companies are going to have chief AI officers down the road. I'm wondering if the same thing might occur with cryptographers.
That's a good question. I mean, I think understanding cryptography is pretty helpful. It depends on the business, but I don't know that everyone needs a chief cryptography officer. No offense to this fine gentleman, but I think obviously if your core business is crypto-based technologies, then it makes a lot of sense. But I mean, sort of like we don't have a chief email officer or a chief cloud officer, or maybe some businesses do. But
you have a chief email officer?
No.
Okay. All right.
So it depends in that sense.
Okay. Hopefully there are no chief email officers out in the audience there who are offended. But so one question I also have is, this is such a new space, the blockchain world and all of these new crypto technologies that are coming on the scene. How do you go about finding talent and hiring people? Where do you seek, talent?
I could take part of that, I guess. I think, when we got started, to be involved in cryptocurrency, you really needed people who were really passionate about it. Because most people thought, like, geez, if I work for that company, I might go to jail, or it's sort of challenging to recruit people.
It's tough,
with that whole money laundering thing.
Small issue.
In all seriousness, no. Obviously, in the earlier days when you're an early stage startup, you want people who want to be part of an early stage startup and who are super excited about the space. And then, sort of as your business grows, and as you've de-risked it, right? So a lot of people don't want to be in an early stage startup because it's too risky. But then maybe when it starts to get traction or starts to grow, then people say, okay, it's less risky now, and maybe there's more capital and have a bigger impact, kind of thing. So I actually think, like, we've seen over the last year in particular a huge inflection point that we've gone through in terms of the kind of talent that's interested in this space, right? It's really, really broad at whether it's technology or business individuals that are really excited about it, because I think it's now just much better understood, and people understand that this is it's a new set of building blocks for global society, and people want to be part of that and work on it. So you don't have to be like a crypto expert anymore or super into it. But the other thing is, there's now tens of millions of people who have got exposure to this as end users and who are really excited about it. So there's just more people who are passionate about this, who want to work in companies. And so it's actually, there's just a lot of talent out there now, I'm finding.
Mm-hmm. So David, same question to you. Ripple's actually been attracting quite a few people with stellar backgrounds. Do you have trouble recruiting talent?
It's gotten easier. I mean, it's still, I won't say that it's easy, but it has gotten easier for us for a lot of the reasons that he mentioned. One of them is that we've been around a lot longer, so a lot of people are worried about a company that's going to disappear, the next day, which I totally understand. I think
the company actually predates the cryptocurrency that everybody's familiar with. Maybe you can share a little bit about that.
Well, the current company dates back to about 2011, which is a little bit after Bitcoin. The project dates back to 2004, before there was a company. It's easier for us to recruit now because the strength of the team. People want to be part of a project that's making a difference. The intangibles are really, really important. Obviously, salary is going to matter on some level, but people want to change the world. They want to do something important. They want to be part of a project that's going to make a difference. They want to shape a company's future direction. They want to have on their resume that they were part of something that worked out and that really mattered. Those kinds of corporate culture is very important, work-life balance. It's really, if you think that just because you have a lot of money, you'll be able to buy a top-notch team, that won't work. But it's not difficult if you have that kind of combined approach.
It helps. So XRP, tell us a little bit about XRP. It has, there was this big boom in cryptocurrencies over the winter. The price was above $3 per XRP unit, but it's dropped recently. Now it's kind of below $1. Is that affecting morale at the company at all?
I think it can become a distraction. It obviously doesn't reflect the success of the company. We had the best quarter that we've ever had in the first quarter. We were announcing new banking partnerships roughly weekly. We were doing very well. And the market just does what it does. I mean, I don't think anybody knows what's going on there.
Okay. So I think it's basically a distraction. It doesn't seem to reflect the fundamentals. It's just going to do what it's going to do. Obviously, people are very obsessed with keeping track of those numbers, particularly people who have significant fractions of their net worth in these digital assets. But it doesn't seem to reflect the progress any of these projects are having in terms of the technology they're building, the partnerships. It just seems to be completely disconnected. It's kind of baffling, I'd have to say.
Now, I actually visited Circle's offices on one of these sort of crash days where the market was taking a downturn, and I was surprised that there wasn't a panic in the room.
It's one of our most profitable days ever.
Tell us about that. How is that possible?
Well, so we have several different product lines, but two of our products, well now three actually, have kind of direct exposure to the crypto markets as a whole. But specifically, I think when you were visiting, we have a business called Circle Trade, and Circle Trade is one of the largest, if not the largest, market-making businesses in crypto assets globally. So we provide liquidity to the markets, and we enable institutions to buy and sell, millions or tens of millions or even hundreds of millions of dollars worth of crypto assets, including all the major digital assets. In any case, when a market's crashing, that's actually a moment in time when the market really needs liquidity. There are people who are like, I need to get out of this position really fast, and I'm willing to pay a premium to be able to make a major move. And so when you have a market correction...
Is that a good idea? I mean, shouldn't they be hodling?
The market does what the market does, obviously, and our job is to help people get in and out of the market positions that they want to in a timely manner. And so, we charge a fee for that. So I think that's really, at that time, basically, when you have volatility, if you're in a trading business, volatility is actually quite a positive thing because it's highly correlated to liquidity need, basically. A sort of a flat market that doesn't do a lot, doesn't move around a lot, is not as interesting for trading.
What is your sort of ideal picture of how the price charts will look in the future?
Yeah, I mean, I think the important thing to recognize is the price charts of what, because right now
we can go down the line of each cryptocurrency.
Yeah. Yeah, right now there's almost 2,000 different crypto assets, but I think it's very likely in the coming decade there'll be hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of crypto assets, and so it depends what it is. I mean, a crypto asset could represent your personal debt for your student loan, and that could be a crypto asset that's traded in a capital market in some new efficient way. I don't know if you have student debt, but
recently paid it all off.
There you go,
so,
with hopefully your crypto investments.
Oh yes, XRP for the whole thing.
No, in all seriousness though, I mean, I think we have this thesis that essentially every asset in the world, every physical asset, every property asset, every financial asset will be tokenized, and so when you say what's the price chart look like, well, it really depends on what the asset is. Dublin real estate might look good. I've heard it's gone both directions.
Yeah.
But it really depends. If you're talking about what is the price of Bitcoin, I have no idea, and it almost doesn't matter. I think the fundamental innovation of cryptographic assets and smart contracts and blockchain tech can apply to a lot of different things, commodity-like things, equity-like things, and currencies as well.
How often do you check CoinMarketCap or whatever site you prefer to track the
Circle
price?
Invest.
Circle Invest. How frequently are you on Circle Invest tracking the markets?
I probably check what's happening daily. I mean, our core business is, it has a lot of exposure to these markets. So, what happens every day is, direct to revenue for us.
Does anybody watch Silicon Valley, the HBO show? A few people. Do you have one of those alerts set up where the death metal screen every time Bitcoin goes up or down?
Do that. Yeah.
Okay. David, how about you? How addicted are you to the price charts and the fluctuations and the volatility? Is it a sideshow?
I went through a short time where I was kind of addicted, but it kind of got boring after a while. I mean, I think I'm in this for the long term, and I'm not so much in it for the price movement. I'm in it for making payments cheaper and faster. I think the big thing, we can tokenize everything. We can have all these different assets. Bitcoin could become the store of value for the world, or it could be eclipsed by something technologically superior. That's kind of not what this is about. What this is about is improving payments, I think, getting rid of pain. And I think what makes me excited is imagining a future where payments are as easy as email, where we don't have to worry about what payment network people are on, what mobile providers they're using. We can just pass money around. And I think going further into the future, imagining where payments are just ubiquitous, they're all around us and part of everything we do, where just like today, actions that you do, like turning on a light switch, might result in something happening on the internet, those kinds of actions could result in payments. the obvious like dumb use case is my cell phone paying for Wi-Fi access everywhere I go. I mean, that's an obvious thing that you can see that solves a real problem. But you can imagine further in the future where, I guess this gets a little dystopian. I mean, you could probably think of more utopian answers, but like I walk past a store and they pay somebody for information about my preferences. Maybe they pay me. Maybe they pay me to find out what products I like to buy so they can display a relevant advertisement to me, or where these just payments are just going on, throughout. And it could potentially change the way we do things as much as ubiquitous communication changed the way we do things.
You mentioned salaries a little bit ago. I want to ask, how do you pay salaries at Ripple? Is it denominated in fiat currency, or?
It is. It's U.S. dollars.
Okay.
I mean, we still have to pay our rent and everything. We do give the employees the option of being paid in cryptocurrencies if they want to. But
any kind that they desire?
I know we do XRP. I think we have done Bitcoin from time to time. There's really no particular advantage because you can, we thought about like giving people a bonus or something, but then everybody would just take the cryptocurrency and sell it. So, it's easy enough to move between assets that it really doesn't matter.
Jeremy, do you pay out in any crypto tokens?
No, we don't do that currently. But I think similar answer, which is, we provide products that allow people to instantly connect a bank account and access these assets and trade them. And so if you get your income through a bank transfer in your payroll, you can within seconds have that in any number of digital assets. And so we're not really providing something significant of value by paying someone in that, when people can kind of choose to do what they want with respect to that.
Is anybody in the audience a Circle Pay user or a Circle Invest user? I've got a few. Okay. How about XRP? Any owners of that? All right, about the same number. I wonder if it's connected. So, David, tell me a little bit more about XRP. Make the case for it, because there are a bunch of different cryptocurrencies out there. Bitcoin kind of is decentralized. You don't want a centralized bank involved. Ethereum allows you to program decentralized applications. Make the case for XRP. What is its benefit and purpose?
Well, I would say there's kind of two aspects to that. So one of them is like, what is Ripple doing with XRP? And the other one is like, what is everybody else in the world doing with XRP? From Ripple's point of view, XRP has the properties to be a sort of intermediary or a settlement asset because it's fast, and it's cheap to move. So what I mean by a settlement asset is when you pulled out that 50-pound note, and we pointed out like you can't move the 50-pound note to Mars in 50 milliseconds. XRP you can move around the world in just a couple of seconds. It's much faster than Bitcoin or Ethereum.
You would need a very fast rocket ship to get there in that time.
So one example of a use case that Qualix is using right now is remittances between the United States and Mexico. So rather than having to move that money the conventional way, which takes several days and is very expensive, they just buy XRP at the moment they need it, and a few seconds later they sell that XRP for Mexican pesos. So what you have is you have a remittance pipeline that sources the liquidity on demand, and you're not exposed to the volatility of cryptocurrencies because XRP is so fast you hold it for a minute or two. That's less volatility than the peso over 2 or 3 days. And it's 40 to 60% cheaper. So we're pursuing those kind of intermediate, like if we're going to have hundreds of thousands of assets, we can't have millions of asset pairs with deep liquidity. Like you can't take any one of those 100,000 assets and have lots of liquidity to every single other one of those 100,000 assets. There's just too many of them. So our strategy is to position XRP as sort of the intermediary asset, the sort of the liquidity source. As far as what other people are doing, the XRP ledger has very low fees, very high throughput, and very high speeds. And it also has a decentralized exchange built in, so it can host other assets. So other people are experimenting with things like micropayments use cases, like eliminating advertisements where you pay for content instead, those kinds of things.
Is it important for everyday users to be using XRP for its success? Because I know, the ultimate goal is to get banks using it, right, to kind of make cross-border payments, settle accounts.
You could look at Ripple's strategy as top-down. The internet actually followed a similar path. Like government and military adopted it first, then it was institutions like universities, and even big data providers were on there first before there was an environment that was mature enough for retail adoption. Like putting my Ripple hat on, there are other people who use XRP who are pursuing these direct retail use cases, and they would disagree with me. But I think it's a little early. If you remember the early days of the internet, if many of you were there, computers were very expensive, modems were expensive, and specialty items. If you found an internet service provider, if there even was one, they would give you a sheet of instructions that you had to be an engineer to understand. It wasn't graphical. Like, it wasn't ready for retail adoption. And I don't think cryptocurrencies are ready for retail adoption yet. And when you see products that have like a retail skin on them, they're still mostly power users. They're still pretty limited. And and given the volatility and the risk, I don't see it yet. But there are people who disagree with me and think that we're ready for retail use now. I think we'll get there. I just think it's early. That's kind of why Ripple doesn't have retail-facing products, why Ripple is pursuing institutional adoption.
Let's talk about regulation a little bit. It's reported that the SEC is now investigating some of these crypto coins, trying to decide whether they're securities or not. This is a US-centric question, sorry. What changes if they do deem some of these coins to be securities, like Ripple, for instance?
Well, I mean, if cryptocurrencies are deemed to be securities, then they'll have to follow the laws in the United States that cover the exchange of securities until and unless they may come up with exceptions to those laws. Ripple is big on regulatory engagement. If you know, some of our employees have significant regulatory histories, people who've like been at the Federal Reserve and so on, and we're engaging with regulators constantly. And we don't want a Wild West. We don't want cryptocurrencies to be used to fund terrorists or to launder money. But it's hard to speculate on what the consequences would be. As you mentioned, it's U.S.-centric, and I don't think the United States wants to be the country where none of this technology happens. I mean, this is a multi-billion-dollar market already. So I think that sensible regulation is likely. Right now, the biggest problem is uncertainty. The problem is not that we have bad laws. It's not that we worry about what new laws will come on the books. It's that we don't know how the current laws apply. And really, there's only two ways to fix that, which is engage with regulators or engage with courts. And obviously, there's a reason why the first one is preferable. So we welcome interaction with regulators. We've been doing that for many years.
Do you believe that XRP is a security or not?
I believe it's not a security, and for two separate reasons. So one of them is more sort of technical, and that's that every security that I've ever seen has been some sort of an obligation on a counterparty. It's something that you can that you at least allegedly can enforce against someone and get something for it. Like someone will give you money if something happens, or someone will do something for you. There's no such thing with XRP. I don't know of any case where something was deemed a security that didn't have that property. But I think also looking at the ecosystem, XRP is not shares in Ripple. It doesn't entitle you to any of Ripple's profits. When you buy XRP, what you get is XRP. People use XRP on the ledger to fund their own transactions. There are other companies, Coil, Omni, using XRP for their own purposes. You don't buy XRP from Ripple. It's an economy where it's purchased on exchanges. So for those kinds of reasons, I don't think it's likely.
Jeremy, continuing the talk about regulations, how hard is it to get banking licenses?
To get banking licenses, I don't know.
All variety.
Any kind of license, yeah. I mean, I think when we started Circle 5 years ago, in the United States, at least, the Treasury Department issued guidance that basically said if you're going to exchange, dollars for virtual currency, you have to be registered and regulated as what's called a money transmitter in the United States. And so that basically set in motion a regulatory regime. The U.S. has had that in place for over 5 years. So that meant to offer our products. We use crypto for payments. We use it, obviously in trading transactions, things like that. We needed to get, licenses from every U.S. state that required it, which is about 48 states. We had to help with specialized licenses like the BIT license, which Ripple's also involved with and has. And similar, an e-money issuer license here in Europe. So it's very time-consuming, many millions of dollars, several years, and you're never done, right? So as the business evolves, as we start to do more things, as we start to launch, security tokens on exchange platforms, et cetera, you need different types of licenses for that. And so I think there's this intersection of, this sort of, crypto technology and regulatory frameworks, and if you want to build mainstream businesses that touch millions of businesses and hundreds of millions of consumers, you're going to navigate into regulated territory, and that's just that's a requirement.
Are you actively pursuing new licenses?
Yeah, we're always looking at what licenses that we may need and talking to regulators about what they think we may need to execute the business plans that we have in front of us. We've been pretty public about that.
which plans might those be? What are your top priorities? What's going to happen next?
Well, you know, we acquired an exchange called Poloniex a few months ago, and Poloniex is a crypto exchange that supports a lot of different cryptocurrencies and crypto commodities. And I think, you know, folks like the SEC have made it really clear that, you know, there are a whole class of these tokens that they believe are securities, and we believe that there are many, many great tokens out there that maybe are securities, and we want to make sure that we can offer.
How about XRP?
I don't have a specific opinion about XRP. You know, they've hired one of the best attorneys in the world, who's, you know, been very close to SEC law herself for a long time. So I'll leave that to the experts. But I think, you know, clearly tokens that have smart contracts that involve an investment contract are securities. And we think that there's going to be thousands or tens of thousands or even hundreds of thousands of those contracts. And that's a great thing. It's a huge, huge opportunity. So we want to make sure that we have a broker-dealer and an ATS license, and that we can offer you know, those platforms to United States customers in a safe and reliable and, you know, in a manner which protects investors. So and that's really what those licenses are designed to accommodate.
So I do want to open the floor in just a few minutes to questions. So if anybody has something, think of it now, and we'll get to it. And I'd also like to do a time check. I don't have a clock up here. So yeah, how long are we? 6:30? Okay, so basically now we're done. Let's get a quick prediction from each of you. What's going to happen to the financial industry in 5 to 10 years out? What is it going to look like?
Sure, I'll start. I mean, I think you know, the theme that you've been hearing here tonight is I think basically right on, which is there's a new infrastructure layer of the internet that's being kind of laid down right now, and that new infrastructure layer is going to allow you know, effectively a lot of the functions that are currently performed by the financial industry, which is mostly record keeping in very proprietary siloed systems, to run on the open internet, to be in open interoperable networks, and to do it at a radically lower cost with a much better consumer experience. And that's everything from payments and moving value around to the much more complex forms of finance for capital formation and the like. And I think that all moves to the open internet. I think it can pretty materially change the profits and economics of that industry, and I think there are going to be very significant large technology companies that are built that, you know, support that move to crypto finance, just like there have been really big technology companies that have supported the move into digital media and digital communications.
And David, very quickly, your prediction?
I think you'll see reach become commoditized. Like Visa's slogan, "It's everywhere you want to be," will seem as ridiculous as an internet service provider saying they have all the best websites. Every payment system will interoperate with every other payment system, and it'll all just be about how convenient it is for you.
Excellent. All right, are there any questions in the audience? Anyone have anything they might want to ask? One over here.
Had a great experience with Circle last year, sending euros over to England to get sterling. And it was just delightful to have an option of an alternative to Allied Irish banks, who would take 3 days, charge me 15 euros, and give me a shit rate from euros to sterling. So first of all, congratulations. Thanks for making that available as an option.
Jeremy, you didn't plant him in the audience.
I did. I planted him.
Okay.
I'm going to circle you some euros.
Curious. I was curious, Jeremy, about your expansion into other currencies, in particular cryptocurrencies, because currently I think it's euros, dollars, and sterling.
Yeah, sure. Well, thanks for the compliment.
So which currencies are you expanding?
So our approach is actually a little bit different, which is we basically have taken a lot of the technology behind Circle Pay, which you have used as a consumer, and that's all being open sourced and released through a new organization that we created called Center. And Center's not for consumers. It's more of an open infrastructure that any digital wallet company can implement. And it essentially allows digital wallet companies to create fiat, what are called fiat stablecoins. So it allows, say, a company in South Africa to create a South African rand coin, or a company in Japan to create a yen coin, or even companies within the UK or Europe or the US to also create dollar, euro, and pound coins. And they're all interoperable with each other. And, but the basic idea is we want a common set of protocols that allow for fiat tokens to be interoperable with each other, so that if you use CirclePay in that case, then you could send and receive value to people using any digital wallet, not just CirclePay. So we really want an open network model for this to work. We want these fiat stablecoins or sort of stable tokens that are denominated in fiat to work and be issued by lots of digital wallet companies around the world. And that interoperability layer is really key. So that's the long answer to basically, we're opening up the infrastructure that we built to make CirclePay work to anyone. We're giving away for free. It's free intellectual property that any bank, any fintech company, any digital wallet company can implement. And we expect through that to be able to support pretty much every currency in the world within a matter of years, we would expect.
Got another question back here.
All right, so just maybe a follow-up to what you just explained. That would seem like a very interesting use case to employ something like a utility token for liquidity or other purposes, or just for using of that platform. Or also, since you mentioned that everything will be tokenized eventually, I was also wondering if what your timeline is on tokenizing your equity, or if you're rather going to go for that first option of a utility token.
That's a great question.
Yeah.
Are you planning to tokenize your equity?
So I'm happy to talk about that.
Let's talk about it.
So on the first piece, so actually this Center technology, the Center protocols, originally we had designed it with a kind of utility token that was very Ripple or XRP-like. We've eliminated that, actually. We don't think that's necessary. We think that there are going to be liquidity providers for fiat tokens, and you're going to be able to match those using exchange rate contracts running over public infrastructure like Ethereum, Definity, EOS, other public chains. So it's merely an open protocol layer for fiat tokens that can be interoperable, and it doesn't need a utility token per se. And then with Circle, I mean, so when we started the company 5 years ago, we issued Iris shares, actually, so the Iris limited shares. And we've had to kind of follow the rules of private equity and people who invest in that way. But when we started, there were all these proposals for like, how do you take a traditional asset and turn it into a crypto asset or smart contracts? Those didn't exist then. Well, now those exist, and so it's something that we're really interested in, which is, could we basically convert our share ledger into Circle, equity tokens, and create a way for people to be able to, invest in those or trade those or have secondary markets of those as digital assets. So it's something that we're looking at, but obviously can't make any specific commitments around it.
We have time maybe for one more question, I think. Okay, one over here.
Hi, my question is for David. From my understanding, the only Ripple product that actually requires the use of XRP is XRapid. So what do you think gives XRP token value as opposed to Ripple Labs?
Well, I would point out that requiring people to use a token is completely the wrong strategy. We tried that strategy in the early days, and it was very, very slow going because you encounter these chicken and egg problems where nobody wants to make payments because there's no liquidity, nobody wants to provide liquidity because there's no payments. Trying to force people to use an asset that's not the best asset for their use case is just going to build a terrible system that nobody's going to want to use. We didn't build an internet that was biased in favor of Twitter. Like, even if Twitter built the internet, they would have built an internet, if they were smart, that would have been completely neutral and completely universal to give them the largest market of people to market Twitter to. So we're kind of doing the same thing. We're trying to build neutral and universal platforms, and we believe XRP can win for the use case we're targeting, settling international payments, because it's the fastest, because it's the cheapest, and so on, because of the throughput, all of the features that we built into it to make it the best asset for that use case. If it's not the best asset for our use case, there's no reason people should be using it for that use case. Other people are using XRP. Well, let me talk about XRapid first. So XRapid is a product that settles international payments with XRP today. So we are beginning to connect like the payment system to our settlement asset. That's kind of been our vision from day one, as well, not quite day one, but from 2013, practically day one in this space. This idea of a payments network that settles on an open asset. There are other people building on top of the XRP ledger. Coil is building using Interledger, which is an interoperability protocol, a micropayment system to do things like pay for content. So, I mean, there is an ecosystem around it building various different products.
I think that's all we have time for. I'm going to sneak in one last question, which is just to ask, if I presented you with either some Bitcoin or a denomination or a basket of bank stock of equivalent value, which one would you pick?
Bitcoin.
You'd go Bitcoin?
Absolutely.
Yeah, I'd go Bitcoin. Banks are going to be disrupted, and we'll see if they can survive it or not.
Okay. Excellent. You heard it here. All right. Thank you, everybody. Thank you both, guys.
Thank you. I think just before I let you out of the hot seat, I might have just one more question as well. I'd be curious to know, from your point of view and experts in the field, what's the biggest barrier to growth for crypto companies at the moment? Is it legislation? Is it talent? Is it infrastructure?
Well, I mean, I sort of already answered that I think it's regulatory uncertainty, particularly in the United States. It's people who don't know how the current laws apply.
I think tightly correlated to that is basically, you know, to kind of make crypto work in the real world, it does need connectivity to the traditional banking system, and the traditional banks are extremely reluctant to enable the crypto economy to have on and off ramps. And so if you ask any crypto company what the biggest issue is, they're not going to tell you regulation, they're going to tell you getting bank accounts. And so banks have pretty systematically limited companies' ability to operate in the space. And that's really a challenge. And I think part of that is regulatory uncertainty. The banks will say, well, we don't know if we can meet our compliance requirements. Part of it is just hostility to a technology which basically threatens to eliminate a lot of their profit margin and business models. And that's really challenging as well. And so I think ultimately we're going to need crypto-native banks that work in the crypto ecosystem, that can provide that connectivity and can work with the central banks really closely to get through that problem. Because right now there's a lot of gatekeepers that are really in the way of startups that want to innovate, and I really think that's probably the biggest issue that the industry faces.
Fantastic. David, Jeremy, Robert, thank you so much for being here tonight. Can we get a round of applause for our panel? Thank you. Thanks to all of you as well for coming tonight. There's beers, there's champagne, there's wine, food down the back, so do feel free to stay around, enjoy it. We'll get some music going and, yeah, sit around, chat to each other and get to know each other. Thanks very much, guys. Good night.